Hello, welcome. So, first off, I'm redoing this video. I filmed it and the audio came out bad, which is why I have this mic. It was the reason I bought the mic. I was hoping to save the audio and I could not. So, we're redoing this and yeah. So, this video, as you're probably going to see in the thumbnail or possibly the title, there you go, words, is about defining the differences in the story of erotica, erotic romance, and romance. So, the reason I'm doing this is I guess I should introduce myself. My name is Dolores Medill, and I, under this pen name, am trying to be traditionally published as a romance author that writes some spicy romance. On the other side, I have another pen name called Serapia Medill that is erotic romance. Now, when I was wanting a more defined definition and criteria so that I can write good erotic romance, I know I'd read what I would consider good erotic romances and what other people had also said were good erotic romances, but I wanted something concrete, something that could give me something like this. Romance You Beats by Gwen Hayes. It's a book that's all over, not TikTok, all over AuthorTube as people are writing romance. And a lot of romance writers, I feel like, kind of boomed recently within the AuthorTube space. And with that came a lot of discussions about sex and intercourse and what is okay and what is not and what is erotica, and I don't want to put X amount of sexual intercourse scenes in my book because I don't want it to be labeled erotica. So in my search, I did find a couple books which I'll link down below, and I'll put their covers, there you go, because I have them as ebooks on the screen. But again, I'll link their links. I'll link them both, all three of these books down below. And any other, everything I talk about here, I have a source from somewhere, so I'll link all those down below when I reference any of the books that I talk about. Everything will be linked down below. So when I went looking, I found some resource. I don't want to call it resource. I found some videos online, and they're all extremely old. And I want to say a lot of them aren't great for resources. They're not great for information. And there is nobody wanting or trying to define what is erotica, what is erotic romance. So I turned to Google and found resources. Also, in doing that, I found a podcast called Fated Mates, which I have been currently binging to try and get to Now Times. And while listening to that, I have heard a lot of erotic romance authors on there talking about erotic romance and the genre and a lot of the stigma that they get and their challenges and things like that. So it really wanted me to push this forward into the space because not all of us, but a good amount of us like it. But we still have this veil of fear and of not persecution, but of like embarrassment, or we shouldn't be doing this, or hiding things like that. And I think that is silly, and we should not be ashamed. That was the word I was looking for. Shame. We should not be ashamed for what we want to write, what we want to read. First and foremost, it's just fiction. It's just fantasy. It's fake. But two, it can help other people. And I'll tell you how. So, the first resource I'm going to go over is from an article by C.A. Belkin, and it's called We're Probably Wrong, Not We. You're probably wrong about the difference between romance and erotica. Now, her main point, main general sticking point, how they define these genres. Romance is love, and erotica is sexual discovery or the sexual journey. So, their definitions of romance are you must end in a happily ever after or happy for now or HEA or HFN, which are just anagrams for happily ever after and happy for now. Couples must get together or must come together, come apart, and then back together. No cheating, which I always thought was a given in romance, but I guess it's not from what I'm learning. And as I have slightly delved into Kindle Unlimited, thanks to friends publishing and just having a little bit more resources, I learned that apparently that is a thing, and a lot of authors put like disclaimers saying no cheating in this, like almost like a content warning. So there's that. The primary plot, and this is important, the primary plot is a love story. How much or how little sex doesn't matter is her last point. So this is, again, the general definition of what a romance story is, a romance book is. The couple comes together, they're happy at the end, or the happy for now means like maybe there's a second book and that's when you'll get the happily ever after. The point is that there will be a happily ever after at the end of whatever the story is going to be. But the couple is together and they're solid, and that's the goal, is for them to be together and be happy and blissed out. Yes. But you don't need to have a love sex to have a love story. You don't even need to have good sex to have a love story. Those are different things. We have plenty of love stories in YA that are beautiful and amazing without any sex. And that was before the boom of YA for like teen romances. We have that. Not that I read any like spiritual romances, or what are they called? Is that what they're called? Inspirational romance. That's what they're called. Most of those that I'm aware of, because again, I don't read any of them, but from what I'm aware of, they're all sweet, clean, whatever you want to call them, even though I hate the term clean. But they don't have any sex in the books at all. Maybe a kiss, maybe a hug, maybe a cuddle, and that's about it. And there's still a good amount of those that are good stories. People love them. They're popular authors, and they have their own standouts in those subgenres. So you don't need to. Now, can sex enrich the story? Yes, definitely, for sure. Sex can help highlight certain points in the romantic journey that are big and important. Now, moving on to erotica and her definition of that. So the primary plot must be about sexual discovery or the sexual journey that the character or characters are taking. Being a virgin is not what it means. You do not need to have one of your characters be a virgin for it to be an erotica, because I know that's a very popular trope within the genre. A lot of what the journeys can be is about identities changing, comforts changing, interests changing, bodies changing, which is a very central theme, or which is the central theme in erotica, like one of these. There is still plot in erotica, just like any other literature. The main thing is about the discovery, the sexual discovery of the characters, whether it be about a new partner, a new sexual act, or something along those lines. And it doesn't have to be about finding a new partner. It can be with the same partner you've had for tons of years. But as we know, sometimes relationships can get stale. You can have as much love as you want, you can be deeply in love, but you're bored. So an erotica can literally be about having a couple realize that, still be deeply in love, and it be their journey on how to enrich their relationship through this new sexual journey that they're going on together. So that can be a version of how the story is going, which I will say is different from what I understand marriage in trouble is. It can tie together if you were to tie it in with like erotic romance, but let's say we're not doing that. It is different because in marriage in trouble, again, usually the marriage is in trouble, the couple has fallen out of love, like they still love each other, but they don't realize it, or whatever other shenanigans are happening to make the marriage fall apart. This one's literally that the couple is in love, but the journey uh, to enrich their relationship, add another layer on, it ends up becoming a sexual journey. A lot of erotica, not that I've read these, but I've seen some, can also be very slice of life, which is valid, even though some people can say like slice of life is very mundane. Going through a sexual journey can still be mundane, because you have to figure out how it ties into your life. It doesn't have to be this like open close situation. So there's that. Now, smooshing these together, erotic romance. First of all, it's a subgenre of both erotica and romance. So in this situation, how I best think for it to be thought of is that it's not necessarily like, let's say, fantasy romance, where you have to choose, is a romance A plot or is it B plot, and then fantasy A plot, fantasy B plot. The way for erotic romance, I feel like, that usually comes out the best is not when it's an A or B plot, it's when it's braided together. Erotic romance is the journeys of both being braided together as the main plot, the A plot. So it's a love story where the love develops through the sexual discovery or sexual journey of the characters. Now, the biggest thing, as I said earlier, having lots of sex does not qualify it to be an erotica. I will continue to say this again. There are so many people that think that that's the case. It is not. That is not the case. It's about the journey you have through sexual intercourse and sexual encounters to get to a discovery of your sexual self. And through an erotic romance, you're again going, that story is being told and weaved through and with romance. So a love story. There are two different genres, but together they can be just as valid, just like fantasy romance, fantasy horror, sci-fi horror, and I'm trying to think of other paranormal romance and suspense thrillers and such. So you can have two genres put together and they still work. Now, how this can function within an erotic romance, I think one of the, and I just happen to have read her more, one of the good authors that does this is Katie Robert, and a really good example is Learn My Lesson. It is a book, a shorter book in her Wicked Villain series, and it's about Hades, Meg, and Hercules. Now, Hades and Meg have been in a very committed sub-dom relationship because Hades runs a kink club, and they've been in a relationship for quite a long time. They're partners in business, and they have fallen in love. Now they have come across an issue, and Meg talks about it constantly, where the sexual part of their relationship is fine. She trusts him completely as her dom. She trusts him to be able to sexually satisfy her and sexually bring her happiness and joy. But she feels like there's a rift between them romantically, which slightly ties into business, but that's plot B that we don't have to go into. She feels like they're drifting apart as a couple romantically. She doesn't feel like he loves her anymore. And Hades can tell that something is wrong, but he doesn't know how to fix it because, he's a dom, he's kind of a broody, he's a man. I can't handle feelings. So, in doing this, and for other kind of reasons that we don't have to fully go into, Hades brings in Hercules into this relationship, and first brings Hercules to Meg for her, because Meg is a switch. Yes, she is Hades' sub, but she has been a dom for other subs. And he gives Hercules to Meg for her to be his dom, but also to teach him how to be a sub also. So what ends up happening is Meg and Hercules do fall in love. Hercules and Hades do fall in love. Now, Meg and Hades teach Hercules about the world of subdom, kink, bondage world. And through teaching him about this world, they see how Hades loves each one of them, and it reminds them how they loved each other, and it helps them start talking and communicating with a little bit of a nudge from Hercules, and it reinvigorates this romantic relationship. It heals them because they do have the marriage and trouble kind of trope. So this heals them through showing and loving Hercules and wanting to bring him into their unit, but they can't bring him into a broken unit, so they have to fix each other. And the end of the book is all three of them as a couple. They are all happy with each other. They know nothing is perfect, obviously, but having the three of them balance each other out and how a lot of triads work, it ends up being Hercules' sexual journey, and then Hades, Persephone, and Hercules, or not Persephone, Hades, Meg, and Hercules' romantic arc weaved through and around Hercules' sexual journey to end with the happily ever after. So that, I feel like, is a very good example of how well an erotic romance can function. Another example is, again, Katie Robert and Neon Gods. So Neon Gods is in her Dark Olympus series, and it's about Hades and Persephone, which is why I kind of messed up there. So Hades and Persephone, their story is about the erotic side of it is about Hades introducing Persephone into this erotic, again, bondage, because he owns a kink club again. Not necessarily as a business, but kind of. So he runs a kink club, and he is showing her this world and helping her explore her fantasies and helping her through this journey of self-discovery and sexuality. Again, she is not a virgin, just as Hercules is not, but they're still new to this new part of their sexuality, and this is where their journey comes in. Hades is also kind of on an erotic journey through Neon Gods, where he is learning what it could possibly mean to have a stable partner, because he's had past partners, but being the ruler of the underworld or the undercity means that there's always a lot of complications, and having someone be a partner and by his side can be dangerous. So he never has a stable partner. He sees that he could have a stable partner in Persephone, and needing to realize what that means and how that can work, and where his hard and soft limits are for that too, and starting to dip into the emotional. So this is where the romance ties in. Hades has a lot of trust issues. Hades has a lot of uncertainty and fear because he's an orphan. And learning to love somebody is scary. So he ties that in with the trust that he gives and takes from Persephone in the sub-dom relationship. Now, Persephone is a go-getter. Persephone is someone who goes forward and helps and nurtures and cares. So she could easily be the person that is like Dom and overpowering care, but instead is able in their sub-Dom relationship to take a step back and allow herself to be cared, and again, trust in Hades to take care of her emotionally, not just physically, but yes, also physically. She mentions when he saves her from something and she's injured her feet, she's like, oh no, I'm fine. And he's insistent and he's like, no, and he cares for her wounds. And just to relax and allow someone to do that is a very deep connection already at the start and at the beginning. And that's where the relationship and the romance goes through, them learning to trust and rely on each other and take care of each other how each other needs. Persephone needs somebody to physically care for her because she's so busy caring for everybody else. Hades needs somebody who can help him and cherish him emotionally and let him see that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and that tunnel is not the light of death, but of joy and happiness. And then they support each other sexually through this journey that mostly Persephone is going through, but Hades is as well, to trust and explore and find how they can give each other pleasure and happiness through that way. So again, there's a beautiful tie, almost like a braid of these two things. There isn't really an A and a B plot. It's really one plot that's braided together with two genres. And I feel like, again, that's a very big, important part within the erotic romance. Now, another example I have that I read after I made the original video is called The Dark King from Gina Maxwell. Now, this is a story about Fae in Vegas who run Vegas, and they're like the nobility of Vegas. It has it's called a dark romance, and it has hints of like mafia-esque, but it's not, which is why I was able to read it, because I don't like criminal romances. Kaden is our Fae, and Brian, forget how you say her name, is our human, possibly. Now, for this one, there is the love story, a very classic kind of love story of waking up married the next day, where they accidentally get married, and there's like magical reasons why this is bad, and they're trying to figure out how did the magical part kick in because she's human, and learning to go through that and realizing that yes, they do love each other. Now, again, this is another BDSM story because, like I said earlier, BDSM is very popular within the erotic romance genre. It's a very popular trope. So within this, Caden does have BDSM kinks, and that is what really helps him and gets him off. So he introduces again Brian, again, I don't remember how to say her name, um, into this part of romance. She like slightly knows about it because she reads, but she's never physically experienced it. Within the erotic part of their sexual journey of being sub and dom and fully trusting and fully accepting, they go very easily and very quickly on this like very secure, safe journey. Now, somewhere towards the like end where you would traditionally have like a third act breakup, Caden uses their relationship as sub-dom to negatively impact their relationship and betrays the trust that they've built within this dynamic. And she gets very angry and very upset. And I feel like this is a very good example of how an erotica can pinpoint the same points of a romance. Because you have virtually a third act breakup, but very, very fully within the erotica part of the braid, even though it mimics the romance third act breakup. He betrays her. In a BDSM situation, trust is so important, so validly, vitally important, because depending on how far your BDSM goes, it can kind of almost be life threatening. So having your trust in your Dom is extremely important. And he violates that by putting her in a situation that is not good and making her still feel pleasure, but is questioning her in kind of like an investigative situation without telling you guys too much. And when he's done and gets the answers that he needs from her and does let her, get off, because there's orgasm denial in here, just so that you know. She turns around because he goes to give aftercare, kind of normal, what you would have in a lot of scenes. She brushes away and is like, no, because she doesn't trust him anymore. There is no connection there. She feels like it's been severed because he used something that was so integral to their relationship, to them becoming a couple and getting to know each other and learning about each other, against her, against them as a couple. So they actually have to relearn how to not just acknowledge that, yes, they love each other and be like, no, I can't live without you, but also reestablish the erotica, that journey that they were on together, and that, yes, this is okay, this can happen, and this is good. So I greatly love and completely feel like this is a very good example of that braid. Also, in the second one, it is also an erotic romance, and it's a different version of how kink and BDSM can be used within that sexual journey, because it's a different kind of journey with very similar elements. Also, you get to see the first couple because it's a brother. We're following a group of brothers. But this is not about their definition. Now, on a different author, or not a different author, but on an author's platform, Sylvia Day, who is an erotic romance writer, she has also her definitions that are quite simple. So she also goes above and beyond and defines porn. So porn, the purpose is for sexual gratification. The plot, character development, and romance are not the primary focus. The point is for the reader to reach orgasm. It's for you to get off, and for the characters to get off. There is no other reason but that. And usually in those, there's 5 million sex scenes or one extremely long scene but there is no actual story. It's just about the act and the action. Now, erotica, she states here, the story is about the sexual journey of the characters and how impacts them as a person. Emotion and character growth are important parts of a true erotic story. And HEA is not important, and if romance is in the story, it is not the main focus. And again, this is just erotica. So, like said in the other article, the point is about the journey, the sexual journey that the character is taking. And that means that they're going to grow emotionally, or their character is going to have some kind of growth, because that's what you do on a journey, just like the hero's journey or the heroine's journey. They grow throughout that. Now, erotic romance, she states here, an erotic romance develops through sexual interaction. Sex is an integral part of the story. Character growth and relationship development, the sex can't be removed without damaging the storyline. Sexual interaction is how the characters communicate and express themselves when they can't verbally. The sex scenes usually majorly have pivot points in the romantic story. You must have an HEA in this one. Now, the only thing that I don't want to say I don't fully agree, but I feel like is not very well explained in here, and even in the main, because I just took excerpts out of her points in her chapters, sort of. So again, if you want to read the whole blog post, it will be linked down below. It's not necessarily that taking, where did she say? That sex can't be removed without damaging the storyline. It's that there is no story without that sexual journey. So having just a romance without the sexual journey of what erotica is, then is just a spicy romance. And she does talk about what spicy romance is. So that's why it's so integral. That's why it damages the storyline. And really, what I would prefer it be said is not necessarily damaging the storyline. The storyline falls apart because, again, it's a braided plot between romance and erotica. So it cannot function without the braid holding it together strong. Now, her definition of what a sexy romance is are stories that are about the sexy romance, the stories that are about the development of a romantic relationship that just happens to have explicit sex. Though it is not an inherent part of the story, character growth or relationship development, it could be removed or toned down without damaging the storyline. An HEA is required, just like a normal romance without graphic sex. So again, that's what makes it different. An erotic romance, you have these two plot lines that are braided together to have one big plot line, and that big main plot line cannot function without the two woven, braided together. Because without it, then it's just an extremely, extremely spicy romance with a lot more intense sex scenes, or it's an erotica with a hint of a romantic element. That is the biggest two differences. And this is where we go back to the first article's point in stating that romance is love and erotica is sexual discovery. So you have, as an erotic romance, a love story with sexual discovery. This is what makes it important and valid, because there are many people that go through sexual journeys throughout your life. You don't just have a one and done sexual journey when you become a teenager or when you first have your marriage. if anything, those are two separate sexual discoveries. Learning about sex and figuring out what you like and stuff like that as a teenager or as a young adult is one journey. And then how you and sex work with a committed partner or partners are two separate journeys. Those are each an erotic story told separately. Now, in saying that, I don't recommend writing an erotica about teenage them unless it's going to be a very like fiction based and it's going to journey throughout their life. I just want to caveat that. But my point is if we can have love stories at many stages, we literally have love stories about people who were in a relationship and one of the people died, or a divorce and they find love again and it's a different kind of love and it's the best love and it's a better love. If we can have those, we can acknowledge the fact that within erotica there can be multiple possible journeys. And like I said earlier, erotica doesn't necessarily have to be one character learning a journey. It can be a couple, like in Learn Your Lesson. The couple is going through the journey together and trying to figure out each other in this new state of life. The journey can be just learning about who you are and what is your next step or stage in life, which can tie very much into like transgender people, but it doesn't necessarily again have to exclusively be that. And it's very important to, again, I'll say it again and I'll probably say it a lot when we talk about the erotica video when it comes out. I'm not promising anytime soon, but it's not about how much sex, how much intercourse you have in your book. It's about this journey that the character or characters is taking that happens to be sexual throughout the course of their storyline. The storyline is that sexual journey from A to B, and it's very important to know that, especially when it comes to the erotic romance subgenre of that. It does not matter how much sex you have. You can have 100 times your characters are having sex, but if all it is to have sex, or have sex to just highlight a couple like really intense high angst moments, but you could literally take all of them out or most of them out and it wouldn't do anything to the story. The story would still be the same. You could replace all of them with like super intense hot makeout scenes. That is not an erotica. It is just a super 5 million chili pepper sexy romance. And that doesn't make it bad and that doesn't make it good. But you could have an erotica where maybe you only have the characters have sex twice, or you have them have different types of sex and each one is important and they learn a lesson from each one and each partner, or the same partner experimenting with different types of sex with each other. And it's not 100 million, but just like, 4 or 5 times, and that's it. But each of those points need to be made. Each of those intercourse points have to be made, and they're very important. And without them, there is no journey, because that is the journey to get from A to B and learn this sexual lesson and come out of this journey sexually aware of whatever it is, just like any other journey. the hero's journey, the heroine's journey, a romance love story journey, same thing. Now, I don't want to claim to be an expert. It's literally just me wanting to find information, finding a lack of information, and wanting to help other people learn. So, if you have any suggestions on books that you think are really good erotic romances, podcast episodes that you think I should listen to, books that you recommend me read, please put them down in the comments down below. I welcome anything before I make those other videos. If you have any opinions and anything, let me know. Let us talk about it. If you're going to be a jerk about it because it's about sex, please keep those to yourself and I will delete them.